Nick, it's an honor and a pleasure to reconnect with you. Now, I had the pleasure of speaking with you like 6, 7 months ago before this movie was sold, and you were busy at the time. It was a pleasure then. It's a pleasure now.
Oh, thank
Aside
you,
from
Darren.
talking to the media elite, good day for you so far?
Yeah, listen, I need to ask you something.
Yes.
Are you really a PI?
Oh boy, they Googled me. Yes.
You are. Oh,
Do you need
fantastic.
somebody looked up?
Yeah, no, I did it. I looked it up. I remember looking you up last time, but I didn't. I found this. Oh wow! It says, licensed PI. That's amazing. It's like, like Jim Rockford. It's fantastic.
Every now and then there's an entertainment overlap to being a PI where I'm writing an article and you got to track down who's handling this person. Or every now and then you have somebody who's hurt, but also a musician, a comic, an actor, and it overlaps.
Dude, your life is either an amazing movie or an incredible series that needs to be written. We need to have a chat about this. I think that, honestly, that showbiz, and then I also happen to have a PI license that sometimes comes in handy. Wow. There's a brilliant story in there. I don't know who would play, like Ryan Gosling or someone plays you, sort of maybe we should set it a few years ago when things were sort of a little bit, there was like sort of set in the 90s, maybe when there's a bit more snooping about and less playing around on computers. That's it. We've got a premise. We've got to pitch this to someone.
Well, speaking of brilliant pictures, Creation Stories connects with me on so many levels because not only is the story great, but this is the music I love because not just Oasis, who's one of the focal points of the whole thing, but Teenage Fan Club and Ride. I love all the shoegaze kind of stuff. Chapter House, Swerve Driver, etc. Were you always a fan of this, or is it that you came back and you rediscovered it when you were?
No, I was always a fan of that. It's so funny because the shoegazer thing was actually bigger in the States than it was over here. Surprisingly enough, because for my sins, one of my best friends, and he's a complete fucking liability, is Russell Barrett, the bass player with Chapter House. Yeah. So he was telling me all these stories about, when they had Nirvana open for them at one point. They were doing this stuff in America and then coming back and it wasn't quite the same, vibe. It was more indie lo-fi over here, and in America they're playing bigger stadiums and selling more records. And the shoegazer thing sort of became the grunge thing. That was sort of, it spawned grunge, which then sort of turned around and ate it. So grunge became sort of shoegazers on gazing on steroids. So I'm very very aware of all of that. I'm very aware of the of that scene. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Reconnecting is what it was, because me and my best friend at the time tried to go and see the Jesus and Mary chain play at the London School of Economics, 15 years old with a fake ID, and we were told, not only you're not coming in, firstly the band's finished, and secondly there's a riot, and thirdly we don't like the look of these IDs. So I had a strong connection with that, and I distinctly remember when the first of those bands that really hit a nerve with me would be when Screamadelica came out, when Primal Scream really hit that, and then Ride. Ride were tremendous, and then Oasis sort of blossomed out the top of that. So I hadn't bought a contemporary record for about 5 years, and then it was all horrible manufactured pop music, which I allude to in the film. Terrible plastic pop stars that were just all needed to be drowned, and then suddenly from nowhere there were these bands that were great, and then out of that came a super group, and then 2 or 3 other super groups, as I say in the film. Pulp, Radiohead, Blur. They came out of the wake of Oasis being a stadium band. So yeah, it was very very much about me reconnecting and rekindling all those relationships. I've got a couple of hilarious photographs of me and Noel Gallagher knocking about from years and years ago that are ridiculous. And I've got and I'd met Liam a few times. I'd actually met Alan a few times, but he didn't remember, funnily enough.
The movie kind of delves into why that may or may not be the case.
Yeah. So yeah, answer your question. Yeah, it was me reconnecting to something that I'd never really lost touch with, and being around at the time when music was nothing and then it was everything. You know, it was. I tried so hard to evoke that epoch. You know, that sensation. What people, because this is what I was feeling. I think in doing that, I may have alienated some people because it's not a pedestrian by the numbers movie, but I've engaged other people like you that have gone, yeah, I get it because I like that. I was there. I bought that record. I felt like that when I listened to that record. I felt like that when, you know, I don't think these days people listen to a song and then jump up and down in their front room, you know, in front of their nan for 10 minutes and then play it to death when they buy it, because music is a thing on your phone and you just do that with it. You know, then it's like you get on a bus and you go to a store and you hope they've got it, or you phone up and order it and then you get it and it's this big and it's in a bag and everyone knows you bought the thing, and you read the cover of the record for
liner notes.
Yeah, exactly. Like clues about these brilliant people, and some people have seen the movie and have been just reconnected with that, and other people look at it and go, I don't get it. Music's a thing I get on my phone, you know, I don't understand. So I found, ironically, you never understand until the film's reviewed. You never really get the full aspect to it. Obviously, I love the good reviews. The good reviews are all brilliant, but you start reviewing the reviews and you start to understand that for some people, this tech swipe sort of generation, they don't have the passion. You know, I'd like to think they've got passion about something else, but they don't have the passion that we had about, you know, about little bits of plastic that made funny noises when you put them in a machine, you know.
Well, you just made, sorry to cut you off there, you just made a very excellent point. So I watched the film with my wife, who's a big music fan, but she's not as curious about who wrote the songs, who produced them. So I was watching it initially and going, I love the story. I love the fact that you're focusing on Alan and creation, but they could have gone more into depth about this. And my wife was like, no, perfect. Don't want to know anymore. It's a great story. So I think that you do have couples or people watching it together where some of them want more details, and then other people go, no, I just love it at the surface and what it is.
Well, the other thing I tried to do, because that was when I was, you know, when I was cock of the walk, as they say over here, and at that time, you know, when I had Lock, Stock was out and I was sort of in all these magazines and parading around like a, you know, a tit, there was an energy about that time, and I wanted to recreate that. And again, it's something where some people will watch it and go, I so remember the late 90s. This is exactly it. Other people will go, I don't really get it. You know, and I think from a personal perspective, being able to see how it's not about the individuals, it's not about the story, it's not about the nuts and bolts, it's about the sort of flavor that comes out of it, you know, of that epoch, you know, that cool Britannia, bands were huge, films were huge, books were huge. Rock star. The prime minister was a rock star. You know, everyone was everything was pop-tastic, and I was trying to get that across. You know, and then of course the evil companies can they just slowly claw it back to talent shows and manufactured pop. And it all goes back to what it was and compartmentalized, and it won't happen again. And it was that thing where you go from punk, boom, you get that explosion, and then in a way, Alan McGee, because he's got a yearning for it, recreates that punk in his little epoch with his bands, and then it will always get flattened by, I shouldn't say this, but you know, the Disneys and the Netflix and the Amazons and the whatever the platform or corporation entertainment monster is, it will always take hold of whatever the indie crowd is and work out how they're making things work and then do it themselves. You know, it's what happened with it's happened every 2 decades. It happens. You'll get Easy Rider, and then that will turn into something. The Poseidon Adventure. You
get Jaws, and then you get Ishtar.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. But it's the same. No, it isn't. So you can't. I think that's the important thing about the film. If you get it because you understand the music, that's brilliant. If you don't get it, I hope there's just enough in there to keep you entertained and bubbling along.
Yeah. Well, you alluded to earlier having some photos and some experiences with Noel Gallagher from Oasis, who's briefly profiled in the film, but without him, this movie arguably would not exist. Any feedback from the Oasis camp about this film?
Yeah, quite funny actually. The feedback I got was, you just can't keep people happy. Everybody has a moan about, this is the third biography.
Well, Liam doesn't like anyone. It's okay.
Yeah, well, no, Liam was all right. You see, Liam turned up on set and he was bouncing around like Tigger, like he was, all right, yeah, great, all right. And did his thing and thought it was great, and then disappeared. Noel is much more. No, it's very interesting because I still had a bit of a rapport with Noel. Like, I emailed him to see if he would lend me one of his Brit Awards because our props department didn't have one. And he emailed back saying, okay, I gave them all away. I think I've got one holding the toilet door open somewhere. And then I never heard back from him. But then after the film was finished, there was a little bit of politics about music rights and whether then lawyers got involved, and it was horrible. I heard from a third party, from a very good friend of mine, Simon Jordan, who was the producer of Telstar, it was teeing up to do a radio show with Noel Gallagher, because they're both fans of each other. And Noel said to Simon to say to me that he thought the film was really good, but there was a lot of bullshit in it. A lot of stuff didn't happen, but it was really good. So, and that was it. And then I emailed him again to say, thanks for the feedback, want to hook up, and didn't hear anything. So, but I did hear sort of horse's mouth that you liked the movie. I mean, the thing is, you can't go into every detail because everybody's experience is slightly different. Everything that I could find, right down to the color of Alan's shoes, I got right. And then some stuff, people will have two different opinions about what happened, but most of it, the things that needed to be right were right. And I didn't want the film to focus too much on Oasis, because we only had a few of their tracks that we could use. And also it needs to not be an Oasis film. It needs to be a film about the label, and this band are just a thing. It's like it's not about Elvis. It's about Uncle. It's about Tom Parker, Colonel Tom Parker. It's it's not about the Beatles. It's about Brian Epstein. It's that sort of movie.
And I think that if that was the goal, mission accomplished. And it's great to see AMC Plus is carrying it here in the States, because that's one of the few outlets that is essentially mainstream yet indie cool.
Good.
So you did that.
It's very, very difficult because that's another thing that's on the wane worldwide. I think we made an indie film at a time when people weren't making indie films anymore. There's it's got to be middle-aged men with superpowers and tights, like going, really? And that, or animation. Yeah, that's it. Or you're doing a really, really grim sort of, acne and yellow teeth sort of lo-fi drama, which it's what is called over here poverty porn. So you either so to try and make something that's entertaining, slick, and indie vibe, to try and make a Lock, Stock, a Train Spotting movie, that there sort of isn't the market. So I'm so glad to hear that we found a home that you think is good.
Absolutely true and well said. And the last thing I want to know is, half the interviews I do, the person, you go, what's next? And they go, deadline.com has not announced it, so I can't say, but it's going to be big. Are you allowed to say what's next for you?
Yeah, of course. So I have no secrets. I'm too stupid to keep secrets. That's my problem. What was great is I've just directed a film in Poland. And what was fabulous about that. One of the few countries, because of this bastard pandemic, it stopped the film going theatrical. In Poland, it went theatrical on some art house cinemas and it got these wonderful reviews. And I got flown over. That's the only time I've seen it on a big screen was in Warsaw, in a art house cinema in Warsaw, with a bunch of Polish rock stars. It's just brilliant, you know. It's like some sort of Saturday Night Live skit, you know. And they all loved it. What happened as a consequence is I got invited to direct a Polish comedy in Polish, and I thought, why not? Okay, so that's where I've been for the last 3 or 4 months. It was a joy. Flew me over, made this movie with the biggest stars in Poland in a language I don't speak a word of. It's literally Kutski, Koigenski. You know, the cast were great English skills. I had a translator. I had Oscar-nominated DOPs and heads of department, because the Polish filmmaking communities is always amazing, you know. So you have all these incredible, like Ridley Scott's DOP that was working with me, because they're all Polish, and I made this hilarious slapstick comedy about called The Perfect Wedding, about a wedding that goes wrong, with a whole bunch of Polish stars. I really tried to give it a bit of Blake Edwards, you know. So there's a lot of pratfalls and, you know, like Pink Panther sort of fights and falling downstairs, and they let me crash I crashed a stretch limo down a flight of garden stairs and then blew it up, you know. And someone gets thrown into a giant wedding cake. So I did this. I really enjoyed working in a foreign language on a foreign movie, which I'm now in the process of editing. And it was just a sort of rebound from this. It was great. Yeah, everyone's so tentative about making stuff at the moment, at the height of COVID. Why not? Canal Plus are involved in the distribution. They're really excited about it, and I had a real blast. So yeah, that hopefully. The thing that isn't official yet, but I will be doing another movie with Canal Plus and the same team, but the next one is in English language. It's something that I've written, and but it's another comedy, you know. So I thought Creation Stories I think it's much funnier than people. Nobody necessarily says it's hilarious, and I think it is. You know, I think there's a lot of humor in it. Yes, there's a lot of, you know, pathos and rock and roll.
Very funny. That's a really good point, because the lows are very low, the drama is very dramatic, but the jokes land. So that's a good point. I wouldn't call it a comedy, maybe a dark comedy biopic, but then that's too many descriptors.
Yeah, I thought people would pick it up more, pick the humor up a bit more. They laughed a lot in Poland. I think probably because they're reading the subtitles. I think they can at least understand it, especially with the accents. So this just needs it's much funnier with subtitles. That's all I can say. But this next one, the next one I'm doing will be an English language comedy, and I'm looking forward to that. And directing a film in a foreign language is something that I think all directors should do, because it really tests whether you know your stuff. You pardon my French, but you can't bullshit if you don't know what you're talking about, and you can't even talk about it. You know, you have to absolutely know what you're doing if you're going to do it in another language. And that was great. Of course, I don't make a cameo appearance in the Polish language film. That would be silly. But whereas I got to do that in this. So I got to be Malcolm McLaren in this. I don't make an appearance in the Polish film. I don't think I'll be doing that, you know.
Well, this is not hyperbole. As a person who owns all the Naked Gun movies on DVD, I'm looking forward to anything that's a slapstick, borderline movie.
Yeah. Now I had all the actors watching the Pink Panther. Right. Not now Cato, all of that stuff, which is now has become sort of, you know, politically suspect, because there's a man pretending to be French, and there's a man, you know, Japanese bloke jumping around, being thrown out of windows. But it is hilarious, you know, and the physicality and all the rest of it. I'm proud to say that we have a fight with 2 French baguettes, with 2 French sticks. We have a sword fight in the kitchen with French sticks that ends up in collapsing in a tray of cakes. So it's all there, buddy.
Innovation. that's the best way to put
and
it.
these are very serious actors. The actor that was in this is he just won a Polish Oscar for playing an Auschwitz intern, you know, and then, you know, I've got him running around in his underpants having cake thrown at him. So it was, yeah, it was a joy. But yes, you can, I'm very open about that. My biggest thing at the moment is I'm just praying that this can find an audience in America and that people can discover the movie, because it's so easy for these things, unless you have a massive star, and even then, you know, that can backfire. But this is a film that people have to discover, and it's only with help of people like you, Darren, that, you know, they get to discover it. You know, the right people will find it. So yeah, help us.
Paltrocast.